I'm joined by United States Senator Tom Cotton on the Hugh Hewitt Show from the ReliefFactor.com studio. Good morning, Senator Cotton.
Good morning, Hugh. Good to be on with you.
Good to have with me. I would like to play for you. It's a little bit of a long two cuts, the president on Iran, and then come back and get your reaction to it. In the Oval Office yesterday, here is President Iran talking about, the President Trump talking about Iran, cut number 16.
I think Iran doesn't know where they are. I've been watching and reading a lot of reports, and right now they're a very mixed up country. They don't know whether they're coming or going. They have tremendous problems economically. Their country's in turmoil. They're having demonstrations all over Iran. Their inflation rate's at 75%. They have a lot of problems. So whatever it is, it is. I'm just going to sit back and wait. Let's see what happens. But I will say they are doing very poorly as a country, and we'll see what happens. We did actually, because they said no, and it's a religious country or religious leaders, but they lie a lot. We did shoot down. Unfortunately, we had to shoot down a drone. The drone came down. You know how it came down, with a new technology that's actually quite amazing. But we took down one of their drones. Instead of saying, yeah, that happened, they lie. They say it didn't happen. So we have, there's a lot of proof. It's called, take a look at it on the ocean floor. Just go down there, take your scuba gear and go down there in the ocean. One of you would do that, I know. But we took down a drone. I think very importantly, I read a report today about CIA. That's totally a false story. That's another lie. They put out propaganda. They put out lies. I don't think Pakistan would ever do a thing like that, right? Yeah.
And then the president went on and said this, cut number 18. He didn't let up on Iran. He kept going.
Pakistan never lies.
Definitely not.
But Iran does, unfortunately. So let's see what happens with Iran. We are ready for the absolute worst, and we're ready for sense too. But we are very geared up, and if they are really the number one state of terror in the world. Now, I have to say they've pulled back because their money is running very low. The deal that President Obama made was a disaster because it was such a short term. It didn't cover ballistic missiles, and they couldn't see the important sites. Under this, you couldn't inspect the important sites. There were many things wrong. And, of course, they gave $150 billion plus $1.8 billion in green, beautiful cash. That's called many plane loads of cash. I think Pakistan would like to have some of that cash. But they gave $1.8 billion in cash, which is unthinkable. And instead of being respectful and thankful, which frankly they should have been to the United States and to President Obama for making that ridiculous deal, instead of being respectful, they put their finger up in the air, and this finger, the thumb. They put their finger up in the air, and they disrespected the United States. They shouldn't have done that. That was a big mistake. One of the best things I've done is terminate that ridiculous deal. If they want to make a deal, it's frankly, it's getting harder for me to want to make a deal with Iran because they behave very badly. They're saying bad things, and I'll tell you, it could go either way very easily. And I'm okay either way it goes.
Now, Senator Cotton, to summarize, they lie a lot, he said. They lie a lot. They put out propaganda. They put out lies. They are the number one state of terror in the world. I think he demonstrated more understanding of the mullahs after 2.5 years than President Trump and his team did after 8 years. What did you make of the president's candor?
That pretty much sums it up, Hugh. He touched on the fundamental nature of Iran's regime for 40 years. They've been waging a campaign of terror and aggression against the civilized world, trying to overthrow the government of their neighbors, taking hostages and supporting terrorism. He kind of summed up the challenges they face now. Their economy is on the verge of a depression. We've totally crushed them with our sanctions, taking hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars away from them that would go to terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. And he summed up what they're doing. They're lashing out right now because of the constraints of those sanctions, and they fear the last remnants of the nuclear deal will fall apart as well.
Now, Senator, you remember the Mayaguez incident at the close of the Vietnam War, the last action of the Vietnam War, many people, 3 Marines killed, when the Khmer Rouge took a freighter, and we took it back. Are the Brits justified in using force to get back their ship?
Of course the British are justified in using force to reclaim one of their vessels that was hijacked by Iranian pirates and taken hostage obviously, they've been going through a leadership transition today. Boris Johnson has just been announced the winner of that, so he'll be taking over the reins of the British government. But I'd be surprised if the British people are going to stand for long. The Ayatollahs hijacking their ships and taking their fellow citizens hostage. In the United States, I'm confident will stand with our British allies.
Now, your friend, Secretary Pompeo, told the Brits yesterday it's their job to protect their ships. That's sort of the Nixon doctrine revisited. What do you think about that?
Every nation has an obligation to protect itself and protect its interests. Great Britain still has a Navy that's capable of defending those interests. What we would like to see Great Britain do, what we'd like to see all of our international partners and allies do, is form a broader maritime security initiative inside the Gulf that is going to stand up to one outlaw nation. The combined might of the United States and Great Britain and the civilized world with navies to support such an initiative far exceeds anything that Iran can bring to bear.
Now, we have a new deal, a budget deal. It is, in my view, not perfect, but it does fund the military for 2 years, which I think is great. Will we build ships? The Brits realize now they haven't got enough ships to do what they need to do. We don't have enough ships. Do you think we will actually build the ships, Senator Cotton?
Hugh, I haven't reviewed the details of the budget agreement yet. It happened late last night. I am pleased there is some increase in defense spending. It's not as much as Secretary Mattis proposed in his final budget before he resigned late last year. But staring down the threats of radical budget cuts because of the dead hand of an 8-year-old law was a pretty stark alternative. I'll be reviewing the details going forward. Whatever happens with this budget deal, though, this moment is a good example of why we need those ships. No matter how advanced, how technologically superior our ships are, a ship cannot be in both the South China Sea to counteract China, the Persian Gulf to counteract Iran, and the Mediterranean or the North Atlantic to counteract Russia at the same time.
My last question, it's become a cliche to say the oceans haven't gotten any smaller, but in becoming a cliche, it lost its power, Senator Cotton. People don't realize you can't have a destroyer or a frigate in both places. And if you've got to go with a tanker through the Straits of Hormuz, you cannot be running through the false claims of the PRC in the South China Sea.
The most fundamental fact of international relations is geography, because it's the most permanent fact. It never changes.
And that means?
The seas never get any smaller, and you cannot police two different seas with one ship.
That's
just like you cannot defend two borders with one division.
Okay, I lied. Second to last question. The National Defense Authorization Act, there are huge differences between the Senate version and Urine Armed Services and the House version. Now we have a budget. Will we get an NDAA that is not festooned with stupidity?
Yes, Hugh, I believe we will. The NDAA in the Senate passed with a very large bipartisan majority. The far left NDAA in the House passed on really a party line vote. So that'll give us a strong hand in negotiations with the House to have a sensible defense bill that gives our troops the resources and authorities they need, as opposed to one that is used as a Christmas tree to hang a bunch of left-wing policy ornaments.
Senator Tom Cotton, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining me this morning, Senator.
Thank you.